Hello, welcome, good morning, no falcha agus madama. And obviously for those of you that are watching this recording in the afternoon, good afternoon, no fiskerma. I'm Jess Wood, and in this recording today, I'm hoping to provide a bit of context to launch phase 2 of the Aire Sund project. For those who don't know me, I am one of the co-researchers on the Aire Sund project. This is a photo of myself here in the pink bobble hat with my family. And for those that have been up to Stornoway at all, you may notice that the Stornoway Harbour is in the background there. And this picture was taken at the castle grounds, the Lewes Castle grounds in Stornoway. So I'm based on the island of Lewis. And my work and part of my remit on the Aire Sund project has been related to my work interests, which are community co-production, methodologies, and I'm also interested in heritage, culture, belonging, environment, and how with personal and collective well-being. So how these intersect with personal well-being and how they interact with each other as well, the different elements. So what I'm hoping to in this session today is provide a bit of context on the work that I was involved in phase 1 of Aire Sund, and also provide then discussion points for phase 2 to help obviously contextualise it. I'd just like to add as well that in this session I won't be covering the work in phase 1 that was conducted by the other co-researchers. And this included work, the digital work by the University of St Andrews, and also the work conducted by Gordon Wells via Island Voices and UHI related to Gaelic. And I am sure he will provide an overview in a future recording. So what I'm going to do is just really provide a recap of what I was involved in phase 1, which is the survey, the Wellbeing Community Survey. So providing a background of how that was developed, and then on to this summarising the findings, and then on to the next steps. So you can see here from this timeline that we started our workshops to develop the survey back almost 2 years ago now, in May 2022. And then this obviously meant there were subsequently several months of survey development and trialling before then the launch in the autumn of that year, followed by community co-analysis and then results and final report. Again, I just will be highlighting it again that the results today that I'll be presenting are going to be a very short summary. And for those that are interested in looking at the survey results in more detail, there are links to these presentations available through the CEUT website, through their project Aire Sund website pages. So how did we look at developing the workshops? And I'm sorry again for the typo there. That was meant to say a series of workshops were devised. So how did we develop the co-produced wellbeing survey? So it was a series of workshops to observe and participate as co-researchers and ask informal questions, engage in group discussions. And also we sought written consent from everyone to record and take photos at these workshops as well, because we felt that it was really helpful for us to help develop the survey as well and our methods. So we first of all asked community members in our first workshop that were conducted on the 7th and 10th of May what wellbeing means to them, and invited them to share their lived experiences. And then in our second workshops, which were an in-person and online, and I just should clarify as well, the first sessions, it was an in-person and then an online option as well. So we had those two options available to allow community members to engage in whatever way or mode they felt most comfortable doing. And the second sessions of workshops were looking at appropriate ways to measure and evaluate wellbeing, and I will talk about this later in subsequent slides. And then we had a number of further workshops, which was again just to gather and evaluate our chosen community evaluation and discuss and review and reflect on the findings. So you can see here, a flyer was available sort of highlighting our first workshop. And we asked people in this workshop to bring in items that meant something to them, essentially. It was bring notes, poems, drawings, objects or artefacts of any item, for example, made during lockdown, or something that meant something to you, that captures what well-being means to you. People brought in a lot of different items. So you can see here, this is just one of the items, which was a hand-carved spoon. We also, within this workshop, covered some of the wellbeing definitions and invited discussions about them. As we often find with the term wellbeing, it's often quite an abstract term, and it's not a term that's used in day-to-day exchanges. So I think it was really important to kind of talk about what wellbeing meant to people in the community, and perhaps sort of look at some of the misrepresentation sometimes with well-being, and how it sometimes can be conflated with the term wellness. So that was part of the workshop as well, is really about the happiness and quality of life, and really identifying, what well-being meant in the community of North Uist. So objects, artefacts, etc. were shared, and stories were shared between attendees. Myself and also another University of Aberdeen researcher, Heather May Morgan, as well, who came up for this workshop. And we also conducted a word association exercise for each object. So we asked attendees to write 6 words on different post-its associated with the object. And this was really just to kind of pull together the concepts of well-being and get an idea, or a sort of map developed of well-being, which you can see here in this poster, which is up at Carinish School, for anyone that wanted to have a look at it in a bit more detail. And this is how we sort of mapped this wellbeing map, I should say, based on this initial workshop. It was a really good workshop in relation just to getting exploring these key aspects, but also it worked as being an icebreaker, and something really crucial, really important in community work is obviously building trust and forming relationships with each other at the start of the project, which is really, really important. So the workshops 2 and 3, so these are just some pictures here of the workshops. You can see in workshop 2, we've got attendees reviewing samples of some of the wellbeing measurement tools. So as I mentioned in that quick overview slide earlier, the second series of workshops was really about finding appropriate ways to measure well-being. And obviously I'm using measure well-being with bunny ears in this, because it was quite a difficult one and quite a challenging one to talk about, really. So it's talking about subjective well-being while using quantitative ways of measuring it, which is always something quite difficult, I think, to get our heads around. So in this second series, it was reviewing of the last workshop. So I presented that wellbeing map to the group, and we discussed it, and we talked if anything was missing, etc. from that. And then using a systematic review that had been conducted by one of our students, to the right here, you can see it was a systematic review of co-design community interventions to improve wellbeing. We used this systematic review to then form workshop 2 and what wellbeing measurement tools. So these are sort of the statements that are used in these wellbeing questionnaires that people will get, that are often received in these projects. We asked people to have a look at them and see what they thought about them. And it was really important in the workshop as well to get people's responses to it and their thoughts, and also observe reactions as well to see which ones resonated, and maybe which ones that people felt uncomfortable with as well, and wouldn't think would be appropriate for putting into our community survey. So the third workshops, again, these were the workshops before the launch of the survey, was again coming back to what was identified as possible survey questions and methods, and questions that we could use, and identify other areas of importance for the group to be included. So obviously, as part of this as well, our other research partners, obviously Gordon Wells for UHI, and the St Andrews partners were also involved in the Gaelic sections of the survey, and obviously the digital questions as well. So they were involved in developing those. The survey went through several drafts and then went live at the end of October, start of November 2022. So what did the survey find? So as I mentioned earlier, there are full links to webinars and the full survey finding presentations through the CEUT Aire project page. So this is just obviously a picture, a screenshot essentially of that project page there. That so you will hopefully be able to find that on the Common Equity website. And then those that may remember, this was the front page of the Aire survey in the end. And you can see here is a picture of the marker. And this is actually one of our community co-designers or researchers that drew this picture and formed our front page for our Aire Wellbeing survey. So just to kind of cover very briefly the next few slides, the survey results again. So you can see here, it was about 50-50 between the online and paper completion for it. We had 83 completed questionnaires, which is approximately 80 of the Common Equity members. That's almost a third of the membership, which equates to approximately 1/5 of the North Uist population, if you're wanting to compare that. So that was quite a good response rate, we felt. So some of the summary of the key findings of the survey, again, there is a lot of data, which I'm not going to share just now, but obviously they are available on those other slides. So we found there was concern relating to heritage and culture, and that the loss of that. There were concerns about the environment. Which are voiced strongly, and also people's connections to the environment as well. And I will come back to this shortly, because it feeds into the first workshop for phase 2. There was also, you could see the importance of spirituality and the importance of community. And again, this indicated the links and intersections with other aspects of personal well-being, especially that importance of community to personal well-being. There was concern that North Uist community was not being consulted or heard locally or nationally around key issues. So again, that's something that I don't think is a surprise for a lot of people. And I believe there have been some steps, maybe not necessarily related to our questionnaire, but I know recently I have seen the consultations happening, for example, with the ferries. So it's good to see that there are things happening and people are being heard, hopefully, and that can continue. There's also a concern about Gaelic in all speaking categories, so the decline of Gaelic, and I wish to reverse the decline of the vernacular use. So that's the community use of Gaelic. And this is in relation to, and so we're talking about, coming back to the consultation of community, there was a lot of issues that came up about the specific issues about not being heard. So some of them obviously were related to transport, which I have discussed how some of those possibly are being addressed. But also there were concerns as well about Gaelic policy as well. So that again is something that I know that our UHI researchers are very interested in. There was strong support in the summary findings of recording place names and recording landmarks of importance. There was interest in the heritage walks, which obviously we've been piloting through the phase 1 of the Aire project that we're going to be continuing to do, and other activities related to heritage and Gaelic. And the Gaelic classes are popular, and I believe we continue to have those. Well, the team are continue to run those at the school, and I believe they continue to be extremely popular. The local community as well voiced a keenness to develop the school, but also caution in relation to wanting there to be coherence with the other community groups. So specifically, I believe someone actually commented that it was really important that there wasn't any overlap. There are lots of community groups, and I suppose it's just that one where we're working together, but we're not overlapping, especially in, I suppose, small communities. That can be quite challenging. So what does this mean for future work, and what has this inspired? So this really kind of moves us into discussing the phase 2 plans of the Aire project. So there are 6 in-person sessions planned, running from today. So that's the 13th of February until March 2024. And these are really to tease out those links further that we identified here. So this is that wellbeing map again that I've just shown you. So that community, Gaelic, spirituality, environment, heritage, being heard, voice and empowerment. So there'll be sessions relating to these key aspects. The first session, where I've got my little Lalo here on environment, will explore community responses to nature and environment. And please see also the CEUT webinar on climate change as well, if you wanted to explore a bit more how our mental health can be impacted in relation to concerns with the environment. So in this webinar that I've just highlighted here, I talk about concepts of ecological grief, eco-anxiety, which I know a lot of people may already be familiar with, and also the concept of solastalgia, which is a type of syndrome like nostalgia, where you've got homesickness, being at home, and this is to do with essentially ecological loss and seeing the place you live changing. So again, if you wanted to explore those concepts in a bit more detail, they are in that webinar. There'll be a ongoing running activity linking all the 6 sessions together, which is a community collage, which we ask people if they'd like to contribute to in any medium they wish to do so. So this may involve poetry, tapestry, knitting, drawing, painting, whatever medium, a creative medium you wanted to use to contribute to that collage on the different themes would obviously then be used to create a community collage, which would be a legacy for the Phase 2 project, the Phase 2 the Aire Sun project. And linked to this first session on on the environment, there'll be a presentation in March by Stuart Angus looking at coastal erosion, and this will be chaired by Euston Robertson at Carnish School. So if you keep a lookout on the CEUT Facebook page, there will be information related to that. There are also going to be further presentations as part of the Aire Sun Phase 2 that will be available on the CEUT website from April, and those will be led by other members of the North US community, the co-researchers in the Wellbeing group, and our research partner, Mr. Gordon Wells from UHI. So again, just to highlight, obviously all this work is to support the development of a heritage and Gaelic wellbeing hub at Carnish School.